Okay, so I'm going to show you how to properly conform sections of the timeline that have animated stills in them. So these are all PSDs, JPEGs, stuff like that, and then they have they've been zoomed in Premiere. So generally, when you send this to Resolve via an XML, a lot of this stuff doesn't come through. And there's also a bug with Resolve that if a still image has a number in it, sequential numbers, it'll interpret them as image sequences and it screws everything up. So it's just trying to fix that in Resolve is just not worth the effort in most cases. So what I like to do, this kind of quick and dirty approach, is if you have a series of pan and scans here, the general concept is to nest these kind of moves and then export the nest as a QuickTime and re-importing it and replacing it. So one quick way to kind of suss out where you have those kind of still images is by using the find in timeline feature and then search for media type contains still and go find all. And then it'll select everything in your timeline that has a still. So I like to color code those. I'll just use red. That way I can quickly see what I need to kind of check out. Uh, Stuff like this, it's just some transition that I don't need, but at least this is a quicker way to hone in on where there might be a series of images. So the general concept is in the ideal world, you would actually nest each clip as its own nest and export them. Um, but that's kind of a pain. So you kind of have to use your judgment as to whether that's worth it. Um, just to make things simpler, I'll just select this entire sequence here. There's no transitions or anything, so it doesn't really matter. Yeah, so there's all these different things. So select all those clips and just nest it. And so I like to call this, actually, I've already started a bunch of series of nests here. So actually, it would be up in here, nests. So I would just nest it and just call it historical photo nest for, oh, I missed one. Okay, so now it's nested, and then you drill into that nest, and you want to make sure that get the sequence settings for it, and make sure that it's at least ProRes 422 HQ. Um, I suppose you could do 444, but in most cases it's overkill. But make sure maximum bit depth and maximum render quality are checked. Okay, so in case you're zooming any stills past 100%, this checkbox makes sure that it renders it with better quality. Okay, and then from here, what you can do is you export this nest, make sure the entire sequence, and then just choose ProRes HQ, and you want to just make sure everything is matching. So the preset in AME will just export the timeline at its source res, say. And I guess for good measure, you might as well do this. Okay, so we export this, and I export this to my color folder, and then I have a folder in the source media folder called Premiere Exported Nests, and then I create a folder for the timeline version, and then drop it in there, just in case you had to changes later, and you may need to re-export this with more handles or whatever. You want to keep the version separated. So I just hit export. Okay, so that's done. And then, so now what I'll do over here, I have a bin called re-imported pre-pro nest, and then I basically re-import that file I just exported. Okay, and then I go back to the timeline here, and then just copy that over. Okay, and then just delete this from the timeline, and then do that. Okay, so you just keep doing that for each nest. So another trick you can do, if you don't want to go through the trouble of exporting each of these clips as its own clip, you can kind of do the same process as you would do for an EDL preconform when you're just exporting a flat QuickTime that you chop up and resolve. Same concept with these nests. You can do the same thing. So you export this nest, and then you export an EDL for that nest. So as long as that EDL is open, you go export EDL and make sure that the proper video track is selected. None of this matters because you're only exporting video. And make sure your starting time code matches and hit OK. And then save the EDL to the same folder as the exported nests. So that way, Conform Finisher has the option of chopping this up, bringing this in, and just chopping it up using DDL. So so that way you don't have to go through the trouble of chopping it up in Premiere first. It's a lot easier just to dump the entire sequence and chop it up in Resolve. So that's one way of doing that.